In Rise of the Guardians, when the evil spirit Pitch launches an assault on Earth, the immortal Guardians team up to protect the innocence of children all around the world.
There he is, Jack Frost!
Santa. Wow.
I hope the Yetis treated you well.
Yeah. I love being shoved in a sack and tossed through a magic portal.
Oh, good. That was my idea. I hope you like the loop-de-loops.
I hope you like carrots.
Here we go!
Why me?
You have something very special inside. I feel it in my belly.
When I first saw the trailer for Rise of the Guardians, I thought, wow, I gotta hand it to Hollywood. They found a way to make Santa Claus, the Easter Bunny, the Tooth Fairy, etc. dark and gritty, like everything else these days. And I really didn't know what to make of it because it kind of seemed like the Avengers for kids, like little kids, because it was like their heroes. You have Santa Claus, as I said, the Easter Bunny, the Tooth Fairy, the Sandman, Jack Frost, the whole gang fighting against an evil spirit that's basically trying to take over the world, but really just kids around the world, I guess. And so, yeah, I had no idea what to expect going in, but having seen it, I have to say, I really enjoyed it. I do think that it trailed off a little bit in the middle and got a little slow. And there were some plot issues I had a problem with, which I'll talk about at the end. I actually do want to talk spoilers just for that. But I thought the visuals were great, I thought the characters were well designed, and basically if I was a kid, I would have just gone crazy for this. Absolutely out of my mind, insane. I would have loved this movie. Not to say I didn't now, but if I was a kid, I probably would have just started crying because I would have been so excited. So let's get a little more in-depth with Rise of the Guardians, starting off with the plot. Like I said, I did not know what exactly this was. It seemed like the Avengers for really little kids. And it kind of is in a way because it's like the whole team coming together and they're like all around the world and stuff. But at the same time, it was much more intricate than I was expecting because you've got like the Jack Frost aspect, his kind of backstory and, you know, figuring himself out, which I thought was cool because you never really see Jack Frost as a character like this. So I thought that was interesting. And I actually liked the mythologies that were created for the characters, assuming they were created for this movie and they didn't exist elsewhere and I just didn't know about them. But I felt like it could have been a major failure to create mythologies for like the Tooth Fairy and the Easter Bunny that go against what we think already of the mythologies of these characters, I guess you could say. So the fact that they kind of took a risk there, as far as I'm concerned, I think it paid off because I actually liked them, which is surprising because it could have been a huge flop. But I said that there are a couple of problems, and I'm going to talk about them later because they are technically spoilers, and I don't want to ruin it just in case anybody cares that much. Couple of plot-related things that kind of felt like, okay. But overall, yeah, I was kind of surprised by the somewhat more intricate plot than I was expecting, and I was entertained by it for sure. Moving on to the directing and the visuals of the movie, I have to say this is probably the strongest point because visually, just wow, I thought it was beautiful, and I thought the 3D was fantastic. The snow really added to it, and by the way, that's an interesting thing I forgot to mention, is that it's technically an Easter movie, but it feels like a Christmas movie because it's snow everywhere. So that's a little weird and confusing. But anyway, getting back to the 3D, the snow really provided a great excuse to use 3D and utilize it very well because you've got the snow sort of coming at you the whole time whenever they're like whipping around somewhere. And of course, the Sandman stuff looks really good. And just overall, the 3D, I think, really added to it. And this is also something I would have eaten up as a kid. I think that kids are going to just be blown away. Their minds are going to be blown by seeing Santa Claus, the Easter Bunny, the Tooth Fairy, the whole gang, as I said, in 3D, like flying around, going crazy. I mean, it was pretty cool. But other than just the 3D, all the visuals, even if it wasn't in 3D, I thought the whole thing looked great. And I have to say, I thought the character designs were fantastic, save for the Tooth Fairy, who I thought was a little bit weird. I guess it was more bird than fairy, so that's why I think I'm a little bit like, iffy on it. But then again, what the hell? Am I really debating the look of the Tooth Fairy in an animated kids movie? Never mind. I do have to say I thought that the elves and the Yetis were great, but the elves, specifically, the fact that they're just wearing hats with holes cut out for their faces, I actually want one. I would love to have a plush version of that sitting in my house around Christmas. I thought that they were adorable. And finally, acting-wise, I thought the voices were pretty good for the most part, except for arguably the most important one, Santa. I really didn't dig Santa's voice. I thought it was a little bit too high. I wish it was lower and kind of more booming. But yeah, if I remember correctly, he was kind of talking much higher for the most part. I thought I was going to be distracted by Chris Pine's voice because I thought it was a little bit too animated, believe it or not. If that actually is pretty stupid to say now that I think about it, but I thought it was a little too much. And I don't know if it's even that I could picture Chris Pine doing it so much as it just felt a little out of place, and it didn't really look like it matched the characters, maybe what I'm trying to say. But I actually thought it ended up fitting pretty well, and it added kind of a spunkiness to the character, and it worked. But I have to say, I think my favorite, although I did love Hugh Jackman, I think my favorite was Jude Law as Pitch. I thought his voice fit the character perfectly, and it just looked like that character really existed with that voice, and it wasn't Jude Law. So I have to say, great job to him, because that worked really well, and to, you know, the people who made the movie and made the character, because it worked all together very well. But yeah, overall, I thought the acting was very good, and not as distracting as I expected from, you know, like I said, from the trailer. I thought Chris Pine would be distracting, but it worked out. Except for Santa, I just didn't really dig it that much. And that's all I can say without spoiling Rise of the Guardians, heaven forbid. But just in case you don't want to know anything, I'm going to talk spoilers now. So if you have not seen Rise of the Guardians, please stop watching, and once you've seen the movie, you can come back and see what I had to say. But let's get into it. I just have really two things to talk about, and this is really the only problem I had with the movie, aside from the fact that it slowed down, which I forgot to mention earlier, but I mentioned at the start of the review, and this is actually part of where it slowed down. When Jack Frost kind of, he like falls into that crevice, well, not falls in, he gets his staff broken, and then Pitch throws him down into the little crevice, whatever, you know what I'm talking about. I thought that was really lame, because he was down there, and it seemed like, oh, all hope is lost, I'm stuck. And then he just kind of picks up his staff and goes right back together. And I figured that was going to happen. And then he just flies out. I don't know. What was the point of that? I think that happened again later on. I don't remember exactly. Oh, you know what it was? It was Sandman, when Sandman came back. Which, by the way, I loved Sandman. I thought he was great. But that was kind of annoying, because it was like, where did he come from? I guess it was because they got the dreams, the nightmares to go away because they weren't afraid. But I don't know, it just kind of felt like I knew that was going to happen. So it was predictable. Maybe that's what I can say. And you could argue it's a children's movie, so it's not that big of a deal. And I will say all the kids loved it when he came back. But yeah, those were the only things I could notice. And considering it's a kids movie, if that's all I noticed, I think they did a pretty good job. So overall, I did enjoy Rise of the Guardians. I had fun with it. I thought the character designs were great. I thought the visuals were great. And even though the story was, like I said, a couple of predictable parts, it slowed down a little bit in the middle, I thought it was interesting. So let me know in the comments what you thought of Rise of the Guardians. Let me know if you agree or disagree that there were some plot issues, or do you not care? Do you overlook it? And I probably should overlook it now that I think about it, but whatever. Let me know what you thought of the character designs, what you thought of the visuals and the 3D, which, like I said, I thought was great. Let me know anything that you want about Rise of the Guardians, and that's pretty much it.
Music!
No music!